Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're back with yet another engine video. This is probably the earliest engine in my entire collection. Unfortunately, it's probably one of the ones I know the least about also. So, if you guys hear anything I say that you know is wrong, or you have any more additional information, please let me know in the comments below. But from what I've been told, this is a very early, somewhere between 1904 and 08, ideal, upright hit and miss. Maybe, possibly a Gould Shepley Muir ideal. I've had one friend say that so far, and I've also heard that it's a rather rare version because of the width of the flywheels. Unfortunately, there's not much on these online that I've been able to find. I haven't really seen too many like this either, just in general. So I don't know too much about it. What I do know is everything I've discovered since I've gotten it. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about that. I picked this up, and I think like October of 10th grade of high school. I traded something. I don't entirely remember what. Maybe it was work on an engine or something with my buddy Brad. There's actually some videos I did of some of his engines way back in like 2020. But also you can see some of his engines and tractors on some of the Long Island Antique Power Association videos. But either way, I forget exactly what the deal was we worked out, but I was looking for another flywheel engine because I think that was around the time where I just got my Fuller & Johnson. But obviously, being a 10th grader in high school, I didn't have much money. So he had this. He just wanted the cart that it was on, and then I traded something for him. And he was happy to see it go to a good home, and I was happy to get another flywheel engine. So fast forward about 6 months or so. It was spring break from high school that year. I took this thing completely apart. Checked it all over, cleaned it up, freed stuff up, fixed stuff, and then got it running. Had to do a lot of timing work and fuel pump work, if I remember correctly. The fuel pump on the side there has two check balls in it. There's a small one down in the bottom, somewhere in this region, that allows fuel up into the plunger area, but not back down. And then there's a larger one on the top here that allows the fuel that the pump pumps up into the line but doesn't let it flow back. Now, both the original check balls were pretty pitted, and worse than that, the seats were really messed up. So I'm going to see if I have any pictures to throw in here while I'm talking. But what I ended up doing was I had new check balls that Brad had bought that he included. So I took the old check balls and I either welded or glued one of them to a stick. Oh, I guess I did for both sizes. And then I took valve lapping compound, put it on the end of the ball, put it down there, and spun the stick with a drill and cleaned up the seats really nice. And I dropped the new check balls in, and sure enough, the pump works again. I think there was also new packing there for this, so I did that. And now it pumps just fine. Obviously replaced the line too. Somebody had cobbled together some line and had like 37 holes in it. Originally I soldered them together, but then I had to take it in and out more times and more holes kept popping up. So I just recently got these new fittings, and this, I think it's a piece of brake line actually, from the auto parts store. It kind of sticks out a little bit because it's new and shiny, but at least it works. Now, some interesting features of this engine. Obviously, some of you guys have probably seen Novo hit and miss engines. If you haven't, go look them up. They're actually very similar. I really don't know how they got away without patent infringements on this stuff, but I guess there's enough features that are just slightly different from a Novo that they could get away with it. Or maybe they were made in different parts of the world, I don't even know. But some unique features to this engine are, first, this very boxy looking carburetor. Or I should say mixer, really. It's not really a carburetor. It's an overflow style, so you can see as I pump this fuel pump up, you can see gas flows in there. And it holds a certain level inside of it, and then any excess goes over the top and down this tube back into the gas tank, which is in the base. Now, there are some ideal uprights like this online, but the unique thing about this one is it's a round hopper. The ones I've seen online are often very squared off or weird shaped hoppers, but this one's completely round, just like a Novo. It's the water tank in the top there, got some antifreeze in there. Got the, I'm assuming it's a reproduction cap, but the cap nonetheless, which is kind of neat. And something else unique that's also caused me a lot of trouble with getting this thing running is this igniter. So there's no spark plug and no mag. It's a low tension ignition, and there's an igniter in there, which, for those of you guys that don't know, basically this was before spark plugs were oh, I guess they were invented, but they weren't always commonly used. And the way that this works is it's basically a set of points in the cylinder, and then as it's coming around, they normally stay open. And one side is grounded, the other side is your hot. That goes through a coil that basically prevents it from being a complete dead short, and then to a battery. And they're open, and then as it gets up time to fire, this little lever will move across and it flicks them open like that, or flicks this over like this, and when it does that, it closes those points, and then when it snaps back to the open position, it opens, and because there's current running through there, it makes an arc. And that is what your spark is to light the engine off, and that's how the ignition works on this, which is kind of unique. Unfortunately, well, two things. Unfortunately, somebody had painted this at one point, and then Brad got halfway through stripping the paint off and then got sidetracked, so it's not necessarily the nicest looking engine in the world. You got remnants of green paint on the wheels and in a few other places, but that's about it. But I simply do not have the time to go in and paint this whole engine up. Honestly, what I might do at some point is just finish stripping the paint off, but I'm not entirely sure yet. But the more unfortunate part is at some point this thing was smacked pretty good, because if you look, that oiler is actually really bent. I've tilted the elbow there so that it looks like it's straight, but really it's kind of like that. And also the crankshaft is bent, which is really unfortunate. Now, the right way to fix that is pull the whole engine apart, pull the wheels off, and take the crank to somebody that can magnaflux it, look for cracks and all that, and then straighten it, I guess, in a press. I simply do not have the money or the tools. I don't have the tools to do it myself, and I don't have the money to pay for somebody else to do it. I've sent many videos of the amount of wobble to a bunch of different engine people, and pretty much everybody is telling me to just run it. I don't love that idea, but it's not terrible. So given my current circumstances, that's what I'm doing. And this thing runs so slow that, you know, even if something did happen, I'm not too terribly concerned, but one day I will definitely go ahead and fix that. Also, something to note that's kind of interesting, the main bearings on this are oil lubricated as opposed to grease. So there's this cloth type wick in there, and you put some oil in there, and that's what lubricates the main bearings. This thing's definitely tired. It's got a lot of hours on it, a lot of wear. This whole camshaft is movable and worn. The governor assembly is really worn out. But despite all that, it does run halfway decently. So again, one day I'm going to go through this thing completely, fix the crank, and then probably remachine all these out. But for the time being, giving my current you know, amount of free time and budget and tools and whatnot, that's all long ways in the future. I actually got the original muffler with this. It's somewhere around here in the shop. My shop's kind of a mess right now. Oh, actually, it's right here. That was the original muffler. This thing weighs like 15-20 pounds by itself. It's ridiculous. Chunk of cast iron. That's a slight exaggeration, just in case. But yeah, it's heavy, but it's also extremely quiet, which some people like, but for me it was a little too quiet. And also it shoots smoke out in every single direction, and oftentimes right in your face when you're trying to start it. So given the cart design that I went for, I decided to just do something a little unique. I know it's probably, you know, a love-hate thing for some engine people, but I kind of like it. So I went down and over out the back. I just thought it would be kind of unique, and this pipe gives it a really nice sound. It's really not loud, but it's got a really nice deep thump to it when it fires. Almost sounds like a real big, like 10-horse throttle governed Fairbanks, except it's a hit and miss. Now, speaking of the cart, this was the main reason that this engine sat for so long. I got it running, but then it was just sitting on the furniture dolly, and I didn't really have the means to build the cart for it for a while, because my dream was always to build a mini drop center cart, which is the style that this is. Usually you would see these on great big, like, economy hit and miss powered sawmill rigs, but you never see any small ones because it's not something that was commonly built. So I contacted my buddy Tom, who owns a metalworking business, and together him and I whipped this together. And It's made out of, I think, 2-inch C-channel, and then he helped me build all sorts of cool stuff like the steering here and whatnot. And then these wheels are something that he had kicking around from like an old welding machine that they took apart and scrapped. The thing was from like the 20s or the 40s or something. Great big arc welder. And we made a mini drop center cart with only 3 wheels. So it's definitely something kind of unique. Unfortunately, it came out just a touch big for this engine because I didn't have the engine in the shop where we were building the cart. I was going off measurements. I should have made these beams just a little shorter, so it was a little shorter this way and sat slightly higher, but oh well. I still think, even the cart's a little big for the engine, I still think it fits. And then probably what I'll end up doing sometime way down in the future is, I think a 3-horse, like Novo, hit and miss would fit really well on this cart. But for the time being, this is what's on it, and I'm pretty darn happy with how it came out. Really, the only last couple details I'm going to do for this thing is I'm going to build a wooden battery box that will fit here, hide the coil, and then I'll get a smaller battery for it. But for now, this is what I'm running it off of. But yeah, that was a lot of talking. Again, let me know if there's anything I missed or any other information, but I think it's about time that I'm going to throw you guys on the tripod, and let's actually fire this thing up and give you guys a walk around of it running. Alrighty, let's see if this thing will fire up. One thing I do still have to do also, again, another eventually down the line, as this igniter has been having some issues, so at some point I'm probably going to have to rebuild that. But for the time being, as long as there's not too much carbon built up on the inside, it seems to run alright. So go ahead and connect the battery for now. Obviously, battery's temporary. Same with the jumper cable, it's just something I got lying around. And then what you got to do is go ahead and pump this fuel pump up by hand so you can see gas on the top of the mixer there. Go ahead and open up that mixer needle there. I've gone ahead and lubricated everything already. There's like 9,286 different oil ports around everything, but and I prime it up by choking it once or twice with my thumb, and off it goes. Maybe. Timing is still just a touch advanced, but once you get it started, it seems pretty happy. And off it goes. Turn the oiler on. There you go. So these wheels are actually quite heavy. I know they're not super massive, but they're quite wide and they're chunky. So this thing will coast for quite a while in between when it fires, and it will run really slow. I found that this is a pretty nice happy medium speed to run it at, where it's not too fast, but it's also, you know, not like super slow where it sometimes has issues. Because every once in a while I like to start kind of double firing for whatever reason. Not sure if it's an issue with the igniter or the governor, but it seems happy at this speed and will run like this pretty much all day long. So that's where I decided to leave it. But yeah, like I said, I don't know how it's going to come out on camera, but I really like the sound of that pipe. It's really not that loud, but it's got a really nice tone to it. And there's just something kind of neat about it, I'll show you in a minute, that this thing just keeps chuffing out smoke even when it's not firing. So there's something kind of neat about just seeing smoke kind of shooting out the back of it. Also, if it's not too windy, sometimes it will shoot smoke rings, which I know, at least I find amusing, and I'm sure all the young kids at the show will too. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take you guys off the tripod here in a second, and we'll do a walk around of it running. Alright, let's do a little walk around here. Something kind of neat is when that cam hits the exhaust valve rocker and thus the fuel pump, it keeps pumping fuel up into the top here. And it helps maintain that level. And then every once in a while you get a full, complete pump. But even just those little motions pump a little bit of fuel up each time. The L-head engine, valves are exposed on the front there. Intake valve is atmospheric, as with most hit and miss engines. So when it's not coasting, the vacuum of the piston coming down that's created in the cylinder just overcomes this weak spring and sucks the valve up and sucks the charge of fuel and air through. The cam and the governor are over here. There's a big weight in the wheel that you may have seen earlier. It's off like this, and when it's spinning, the centrifugal force of the wheel spinning throws the weight out to one side. That hits that weird curved piece in there, like that, which holds the governor finger, or the latch out finger, which you can see down there, underneath the exhaust valve rocker. And that fights with this spring, and this is your speed adjustment here. There's your camshaft, as you can see. And the cam lobe is there, a little roller on the rocker arm. And then that also controls your igniter. As you can see it working there. So right now those points are open. And then when that thing comes across and flicks this, it closes and reopens them and makes an arc. It's kind of neat to watch. If you look down here, you can see what I was talking about before with that gear wobbling back and forth. I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but you can definitely see it in person. It's pretty crazy. And unfortunately, as you can see, wheel wobbles a little bit. It's not awful, but definitely not ideal. No pun intended. Sorry about that one. But, yeah, so it goes, I guess. But yeah, after a lot of tuning and whatnot, this thing just sits here and runs like this all day long, and it's great. Really couldn't be much happier with it. If you're wondering about all the oil on the base, I believe I have to drain the oil out of the crankcase. These aren't really meant to have that much in it, and over time of running and refilling all that drip oiler, I think a lot of that has gone into the base, and it's a little bit over full. Because you can even see around here when it's running, that breather space around the main bearings, it's constantly just blowing oil out. So that's on the eventual to-do list, maybe before the shows. You can kind of see what I mean with the smoke constantly coming out of the pipe. It's got a nice sound to it. Plus, I think it's kind of unique having the pipe go down and out the back. Not something you see very often. And if you rev it up a little bit, it almost sounds like a big throttle governor engine. I won't get too carried away here. For those of you guys who are wondering, I'm just pushing on the latch finger. Let her coast for a little bit and bring it down a bit. The other reason I don't want to run it too fast is because with that crank being bent like that, it will wear that bearing out much faster. So, but yeah, this thing will coast down to like nothing. I could probably turn the speed down a little bit if I wanted to, but I don't know. I think the speed's like a nice happy medium. But yeah, it's neat. Most uprights, there aren't a heck of a lot of things to look at. I always kind of like the open crank models, the horizontal, which are typically horizontal. There are some uprights that have a completely open crankcase, which is really neat, but those usually go for quite a lot of money. What I'm also considering doing, just for show purposes, is taking this plate off and replacing it with a piece of plexiglass so you can see the bottom end of the rod going around. I think that'd be kind of neat. Might do that before this show even. I gotta see what I have time for, but even being upright with the igniter and everything, and also the way you can see everything through the wheels, it's pretty cool. And also, given that it's a rare, I'm going to say it's a fairly rare engine, definitely not something you see every day. It's just kind of neat to have in my collection. Because other than this, I think the next earliest engine is my 1923 Whitty. So, it's cool to have something pretty early. I think having that battery box on the front is really going to dress it off nice. Something else I'm considering doing is getting a... I have a small air compressor. I don't know if that's too much of a load. Or maybe a small water pump and mount that to the back of the cart here. Because then it can be its own little display and it will fill in that space kind of nice. But I haven't found anything yet, and I'm not totally set on the idea just yet. But we'll see, maybe one day. Go ahead and walk around to the other side. Not as much to look at over here, but cart's rocking around a little bit because of its orientation in the driveway and also the fact that it's sitting on a hard asphalt driveway. Oh, that car sounds nice. Probably a 60s T-Bird or something. I didn't catch it really too close there, but anyways. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me for this video, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed. So like I usually say, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. By all means, leave a comment if you have one, especially if you have any more information on this thing for me. And hit those little like and subscribe buttons if you did like the video, by the way. I appreciate that too. And we'll see you in the next one. So till then, go ahead and shut her down.